This is Live Life Love. Hello and welcome to the Live Life Love podcast. I'm so glad you're here. If this is your first time listening, Live Life Love is all about living the life you love and living your life full of love. Today we're going to be focusing on that live a life you love part of the podcast message, and we are going to be learning about how we can apply a framework that already exists, the scientific method, to our lives to make intentional change. And I think it's very easy in today's society. We're constantly bombarded with information, so it's very easy to function off of a whim or what we see or what other people are doing. And in general, there's a lack of intention that prevents change from really being substantial and sustained over time. And a lot of times when we're seeing things that work for a lot of different people, that can be really great and it can work for us. But often they don't work for you. Like you see a video or whatnot that shows someone getting a result from something, and then when you try it, you just don't see that same result. So the whole point of using the scientific method is being intentional about what you want to change and what you want to do to bring about that change, and really creating a structure for that actually seeks to answer a question or something that you've been looking to fix in your life. And I know the scientific method might sound scary or serious or complex, but it should be a fun way to intentionally discover what you like and what works for you. So if you are unfamiliar with the scientific method, the 7 steps are observe, question, research, hypothesize, experiment, draw conclusions, and then finally report. So not too bad, should be pretty straightforward. And something to know about this podcast is I'm all about actually making these change, and one of my favorite ways of holding yourself accountable is journaling. So if you are not on your commute to work right now or cleaning your kitchen or listening while doing something else and you want to grab your journal and kind of follow along and you have something in mind that you want to start writing out this framework on, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to post some examples on the Instagram, Live Life Love Pod. If you haven't checked it out already, I recommend that you do. And then I'm also going to be putting a template on my website, livelifelovepodcast.com. That makes it easy to fill out if you don't want to, make your own framework and have your own space here. So jumping right in to the first step, which is observe. And this is pretty much just looking at your life and figuring out what isn't working or what is working and you want to dig in and improve more, or what's something that you want to try, or have you seen something online that sparks your interest. So I'm going to be maintaining a example throughout this episode, and that is going to be a fitness example because I think that is often the number one thing that people want to change and implement in their life is some kind of fitness routine. So with my fitness example, the observe would be maybe I'm not as strong as I would like, or I don't work out too much. So it doesn't have to be something super complex or anything like that. Just writing down simple observations. Next, the second step is question. And this should be a literal question that you're writing down about how you can get to that goal or that observation. So it could be, how can I improve X? Or what would work for me? What kinds of things have worked or not worked in the past? And so for the fitness example, these could be, what kind of ways are there to exercise around me? Or what kind of exercise do I enjoy? What time or frequency of exercising works best for me? Or how much money am I willing to spend on exercising? And you can write down one question here or multiple questions. And I will say, if you have a more straightforward goal and you're like, I don't really have a question about this, I just want to implement X or implement Y, but it hasn't worked for you in the past, I would recommend that your question be, what time or frequency does this work for me? Because that's often what prevents us from, being able to actually start a routine is we're not picking the right time for us to do that thing. And it could be, when you wake up in the morning, after work, over your lunch break, after school, whatever. So after you have your question or questions, you're going to want to do some research here. And obviously the internet is your greatest resource here. You can even ask AI to make a workout for you or give you some ideas. AI is great at coming up with a lot of ideas. But I also recommend looking for people who are experts in whatever you're interested in and people who seem the most similar to you. So they seem like their before is the most similar to where you are now, and their after is where you want to get to eventually. And don't get too overwhelmed here. Really only pick a few voices to listen to. Don't get too bogged down by everybody. And as you're going through, write down anything that might interest you or sounds like it might be a good fit for you. You could even create a Pinterest board here if you're like a visual person and you want a visual place for inspiration or something to come back to and see what your goal is and where you're going to. And so for the fitness example, things that I might research are looking up different types of exercise or looking into classes, gyms, personal trainers, hiking trails, sports leagues, etc. that are around me, or checking the prices on them, what kind of hours they have, what are like ways that you can try it out, things like that. Now, once you have all your research done, you can form your hypothesis. Now, you want to pick one thing here. So you don't want to put too much on your plate or change too much all at once because you won't get really clean results then, and you won't know exactly what is working and what's not working always. And we want to make sure that with your hypothesis, you're just building up slowly. So you're not maybe jumping to your finish line quite then, but picking a thought or an idea that you think you can meet. So for the fitness example, it could be, I think I would enjoy hot yoga. I have the most time on Wednesdays. I think I should try a bunch of different types of exercise to see what I like most because I don't have a lot of experience exercising. So these should just be, kind of statements that you think the outcome of this experiment is going to be. So then you go into the actual experimentation phase. And if your hypothesis wasn't super goal-oriented, then you might want to formulate everything into a very specific and actionable goal. You also want to set a timeline for your experiment. There are some things that you will know if they work for you instantly, and others that you will have to give it to some time to decide if it works for you and if you like it. So like if you want to write a book, maybe you want to give writing in the morning, ample time to see if you actually like that before trying it once when your body is not used to waking up early and seeing how your creative juices are flowing. So for the fitness example, this could be, I will try going to a hot yoga class after work every Wednesday at the yoga studio across the street for a month. So obviously you can tell I have a set timeline, a month. I use a lot of the information that I researched and my hypothesis that I think I would like hot yoga and that I have time on Wednesdays. Now, this could also look like I will try one new way to exercise every week and record the results for 10 weeks. So you have a very set amount of time there, and what you're going to be doing is recording the results to try to figure out, I want to test a bunch of different options and figure out which of those options is the best for me. Now you can kind of be creative in this part of everything to plan out your experiment, how often you want to write down how it's going. You can just write down when the experiment is over, or maybe every week, or maybe you want to actually use the experiment section to make like a little habit tracker of how everything's going. But it's important to just write down anything so you have enough data here for the next step, which is draw conclusions, which is where you'll need to ask yourself, like, is this working or is it not? And if it's not working, don't worry, you didn't waste all that time. You should be able to figure out what doesn't work for you or what else you can learn about yourself. You should be able to figure out something about yourself from the experiment still. So for my fitness example, it could be, I do enjoy hot yoga, or it could be, I don't enjoy hot yoga, and I think that something more fast-paced would suit me better. Then you can go back to the hypothesis stage. That is a new hypothesis that you can then test and kind of rinse and repeat for steps 4 through 6 till you find enough information and enough data to actually meet your goal. And it could be, the time doesn't work. Like, I don't like working out after work because I hit more traffic. So I think working out in the morning would be better. Or maybe if you tried a bunch of different workouts, it would be my favorite workouts that I tried were kayaking and going for runs, while I didn't like soccer and HIIT. So after you have kind of done all of those conclusions, figured out what you could learn from all of that data that you collected in the experiment phase, now comes the final phase, which is report. I think report can be a little bit hard to understand in this framework of changing things for yourself. So you can also think of it as digging in. So continuing doing the things that work and making sure that you're implementing them fully into your life. You also want to make sure that you're scaling these changes. So for fitness, this could be that you decide to do hot yoga 2 times per week or kayak twice per month and run 3 times per week. So you're increasing the amount of the thing that you were doing to get closer to your goal. So it should really be X really worked for me. Now I want to try Y to improve myself even more. Because self-improvement really doesn't ever end, unfortunately. We are always having to work and move towards improvement. But hopefully, if you kind of take an experimentation approach to everything, you can draw real conclusions from your life, about your life, and learn more about yourself to be able to decide, oh, this is good for me. This isn't good for me. I've seen this work for a bunch of people, but it just doesn't work for me. Or this works for a bunch of people, and it definitely works for me. And don't get discouraged if you feel like you have tested all the options and have not found anything that works. This is the time to look back at your results and try to figure out if there is anything that you can go back to and give it more time. Like maybe you didn't run the experiment long enough, or figure out what worked the best, even if it wasn't exactly the perfect fit. Unfortunately, there can be a lot of struggle that is involved with change, and comfort is often the enemy of progress. So sometimes you just have to buckle up and push through those things that are hard if you want to make that lasting change. So those are all the steps. There are only 7. Hopefully that doesn't feel too overwhelming, and maybe this mindset sounds like something, or this framework sounds like something that would really work for you. So you can use these concepts more directly, or you can just take the general idea of making sure that you're independently testing different things intentionally in your life to make change, rather than not being super intentional and a little bit more willy-nilly about it. And if some of the steps don't resonate with you, you can feel free to skip them. Nobody's forcing you to fill them all out or follow everything exact. And like I said, I have posted some example layouts of what this can look like on my Instagram, Live Life Love Pod. And if you haven't checked that out, I recommend you do. I know it's a little scary. The podcast is just starting out, so there's not a lot of followers, but please follow. It would mean a lot. And then I also have that free printable template, or PDF if you prefer to fill things out on an iPad, that you can download from my website at www.livelifelovepodcast.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with whoever, wherever that you would like to. And if you are listening on a platform where you can rate the podcast or leave a review, please do. That helps people discover the podcast and word get out. And right now we are in our growing phase. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Live Life Love podcast. As always, please share this episode with your friends and family. Follow the podcast on Instagram at livelifelovepod, or visit the website livelifelovepodcast.com. You can find past episodes wherever you like to listen, and new episodes come out every Tuesday. Have a great day.